Gang hitty in this motherfucker.
Uzis and the M16s, the Maybach to the AMG, I'm drifting. Yeah. Susie to the left of me, I coach her like a referee, a scrimmage. Nigga. Get her off that ecstasy, addicted like a amphetamine, she is. Take you to the back of the building, expose your rage, is you crippin'? A lot of niggas hating on me heavily, you see how I be drippin'. Okay. And I can show you how to shoot, you'll be recruited, but I can't show you how to pivot. 20 in the back with the beam and a double clip, it come extended.
Greetings and salutations. I'm your host, Gabe Morales. Today we're going to cover what I consider to be the top 10 most influential Crip gang members ever. This does not mean they were the strongest or deadliest, or from the biggest Crip sets or most powerful gangs, but they are individuals who I feel made their mark on LA County and beyond. I do not tend to glamorize any of them, but I've always felt it is important to know who started gang violence and historic motives in order to better understand how we can end it. All of these individuals are included in my book, Ending Black and Brown Violence in America. Undoubtedly, there will be some people who differ in their opinions, but this is my own personal list, and there were some tough decisions.
I met my first Crip in 1974. We had moved up to Seattle. This was 5 years after the gang started in LA, and I've spoken to many Crips and Bloods who were there in the early days, and their version of history does not match up to many other stories I've heard, especially from youngsters. I just don't take one person's word. I've done thousands of hours of research on this and spoken to hundreds of gang members.
First of all, the undisputed founder of the Crips, Raymond Washington, who was born on August 14, 1953. Raymond Lee Washington was born in Los Angeles, California, and was the youngest of four sons to Violet, Samuel, and Reginald Washington. His parents separated when he was only 2 years old, so he was raised by his mother and his stepfather. He grew up on East 76th Street between Wadsworth Avenue and Central Avenues in Los Angeles' South Central area. It is interesting to me that his home was located very near an LA County Juvenile Justice Center. He would also visit his biological father, who lived in a greenhouse right next to a park. According to neighbors, Washington developed affinity for fistfighting and was always in trouble with Los Angeles police for various offenses.
There's no documentation of a Black Panther connection to Raymond in any newspapers or FBI files that I've researched. In all of my years, I have not seen one picture of Crip founder Raymond Washington with the Black Panther t-shirt or Black power symbols on him, or attending any major political rallies for Black social causes in the 1970s. Crips mostly preyed on and beat up other Blacks, something the Panthers were strongly against. According to the Panthers I knew, the worst thing you could do in the late 60s and 70s was kill another Black man. As I alluded to, it is true the Crips and other Black gangs filled the void for disillusioned Black youth after many of the Panthers were killed or locked up in the early 70s. Late 1960s, Original Avenues member and professional bodybuilder Craig Munson claims he came up with the term Crip. Munson says that then 15-year-old Raymond Washington and his homeboy, Bernie Ray Bulldog Simpson, were too little to join the Avenues. Munson admits some people did call Washington and Simpson Baby Avenues, a group that did not officially exist, but they were called that because they often tried to hang around the older Avenues. One day, Munson said he was fed up with Raymond's mouth and backhanded him. Munson felt Washington was being disrespectful while the Avenues were lifting weights at Munson's place. He told Raymond, "Don't you come over here no more." Raymond, with pride hurt, allegedly told the 19-year-old Munson, "Good, I don't want to be in the Avenues anyway. I'm going to start my own gang." Munson mocked him and said, "Oh yeah? What you going to call it? The Crips?" Munson states, Raymond said, "Yeah, that's what I'm going to call it." And so he did. I never spoke with Raymond Washington, but it's obvious to me he became bigger than life. People who knew him admit Raymond was kicked out of a lot of schools for fighting the mischief. He went to Drew Junior High School, then Edison Junior High School, then first attended Fremont High School in 1969. Raymond then transferred to Washington High School in September 1970, where he first met Stanley Tookie Williams, who ran with a gang called the Al Capones. Some have stated that Tookie was with the Gladiators, but this was likely a description of the way he fought, not the actual gang. Some say O.G. Wolf from the Brims tried to recruit Tookie first. Either way, it's impossible that Williams was the original Crip in 1969.
In 1974, a 21-year-old Raymond Washington was arrested for second-degree robbery and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment and ended up at the Dual Vocational Institution in Tracy, becoming the very first documented Crip to be incarcerated there. Washington's presence was very unpopular among many of the prison convicts as he began to recruit young African-American inmates into the Crips gang, much to the disapproval of established Black prison groups like the Black Muslims and Black Guerrilla family. According to early Crip Greg Batman Davis, a friend of Washington and one of the original Crip members, people in prison were losing their loved ones on the streets, and because Raymond was the founder of the Crips, they blamed him for it. And since Raymond was the only Crip up there at the time, they were trying to kill him. In 1976, Raymond paroled and returned to Los Angeles to find that his organization had splintered into many different factions or sects. According to law enforcement, former gang members, and close friends of Washington, he decided that the Crips needed to be brought back under one umbrella organization to stop the infighting, but his appeals fell on deaf ears. At around 10 p.m. on August 9, 1979, 25-year-old Raymond Washington was murdered on the corner of East 64th Street and South San Pedro in South Central Los Angeles. He was rushed to the Morningside Hospital, where he soon died while undergoing emergency surgery. It was later reported that Washington was hanging out on the corner when a car pulled up, and unidentified occupants called him over to the car. Now, Washington's associates, as well as the police, were very aware that he would never just walk up to a carload of people he did not personally know. So most likely the occupants of the vehicle knew him, and he knew these individuals as well. Washington engaged in a brief conversation before an occupant in the car drew a sawed-off shotgun and shot him in the gastrointestinal tract and abdomen. Many people believe it was the Hoovers who did it, but nobody was ever charged. It was, however, one of the contributing factors to most Hoovers splitting away from the Crips. Raymond Washington will be forever recognized as the founder of the Crips, a good organizer, and is remembered still to this day. Stanley Tookie Williams was born on December 29, 1953, in Shreveport, Louisiana, so he was just a couple months younger than Raymond. His father abandoned the family when Williams was only 1 year old. In 1959, Williams moved with his mother, Louisiana Williams, to Los Angeles, California, and settled in the city's South Central region on the west side. Williams' mother worked several jobs to support her children, but often could not afford a babysitter. So as a child, Williams would often hang out in abandoned houses and vacant lots, where he would watch adults get drunk, abuse drugs, gamble, and engage in dog fights. Williams stated after the adults finished the dog fighting, they would often make the children fight each other, including himself. And soon, Williams gained a reputation for being a good fighter. Like Washington, he was expelled from many schools and barred from attending other schools due to his reputation for fighting. Eventually, he began doing stints at the Central Juvenile Hall. At the age of 15, Williams was invited into a small West Side clique after he was befriended by Donald Doc Sweetback Archie. And soon, Williams became an unofficial leader of this clique. This clique was not Crips yet, but did operate on the West Side. In 1969, at the age of 16, Williams was arrested in Inglewood for car theft, and he was sent to Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, located in Downey, California.
According to my sources, a 17-year-old Tookie was recruited in the gang after the summer of 1971. Some say he met Raymond at the Rio movie theater, but early Cripple G. Angelo Barefooted Pookie White says Tookie was locked up when they went to the movies. Some sources say Tookie's incarceration at this time was due to fighting some rebel rousers. Others say it was due to car thefts in 1969. To be honest, I am not sure. It could have been due to both. In summer of 1971, Raymond held a meeting on the west side of South Central at Washington High School after a conflict occurred with some Inglewood boys in June of that year. At that meeting, Raymond asked the West Side Crips to choose a leader, and they voted Larry Sapaggio, then 18, to call the shots, not Williams. This incident was said to be the start of the West Side Crips, when pre-Crips, Smack's gang members, including Melvin Hardy, who's their number one guy, Mike and Louis Concepcion, Warlock, Archie Crum, Big Oldie, the Runettes, and Barefooted Pookie, then 14 years old, decided to become Crip. According to Pookie, Donald Sweetback Archie was close to Tookie, but neither one of them were present at the first West Side meeting to discuss the incident with the Inglewood boys. No Inglewood Crips were present at that meeting either, but Inglewood gangsters Mike Christian, Kenny Robinson, Leon Touche Watkins, and others later decided to join the Crips after their meeting with Raymond. Per LA County Sheriff's Department Sergeant Richard Valdemar, who was assigned to gang units in the 1970s and who has appeared in many gang documentaries, Tookie Williams was not the co-founder of the Crips, but he was a very early member of the Crips. There's a difference. According to those who knew him, Tookie came from the West Side Hundreds and became a Crip. Tookie did time in and out of Bob Simmons' homes for boys from 1974 to 1977, so he missed a lot of the action on the streets. On weekend leave, though, Tookie did spend a lot of time in Compton with Crip homeboys who visited him. According to several witnesses who knew Tookie back in the day, one of his favorite sayings was "Crip or what?" If the victim answered in the affirmative with a "hell yeah, cuz," or something to that effect, he was left alone and considered an ally after he survived further prodding. If the answer was a blank stare or anything considered a no, he was beaten.
In 1979, he was arrested for the murder of 4 people during 2 robberies. Convicted of the murders in 1981 and sentenced to death, he spent over 2 decades on death row, where he racked up many CDC 115 rule violation reports. He ended up becoming a major factor in the criminal Blue Note Crip organization, along other individuals like Pup King, who I had at New Folsom. These guys were all about getting their money. With assistance of some ghostwriters, he did put out a couple of books claiming personal redemption and even wrote a children's book. But I know some officers who worked death row at San Quentin, and they said he was insolent up until the end, especially getting very angry with medical staff who couldn't get his last medical injection set up right. So, after numerous appeals, he was executed by lethal injection on December 13th, 2005 at San Quentin, as protesters, including rapper Snoop Dogg, criticized the governor's decision not to stop it.
According to most Crips that were around in the early 1970s in South Central, Raymond was a natural organizer and maybe still feeling the sting of Munson's backhand and promised to build up his own gang. He held mandatory meetings on the weekends to discuss repping at social events or discuss beefs with rivals that the Crips might have. He was also known for cruising around South Central and Compton in his white 1962 Chevy during his recruitment efforts when starting all of the OG Crip sets. During one of his meetings down in Compton, Washington recruited Mack Thomas.
Mack Thomas was born on December 14, 1953, in Tennessee, and spent some of his younger years in Watts, but he later moved to Compton around 1971 or 1972. Originally, the Pyrus and Crips got along in the city of Compton. Mack, along with fellow Crip head honcho Dave, actually got along with Pyrus leader Sylvester Puddin Scott at first, but then the Pyrus shot Mack's brother twice, so he ended up hating them afterwards. After Mack Thomas, head honcho, and others started the Compton Crips along the Grandees, other Crip sits popped up in the area like Acacia Block, Kelly Park, Nutty Block, Front Hood, Palmer, and Park Village. The Grandee Compton Crips were predominantly African American that were started in the early 1970s right off Grandee Street. That was located just south of the Compton Airport in the area that is now known as Nutty Block Compton Crips. Mack Thomas was killed on September 21st, 1978. Since he died so young, there's not a lot of documentation on him, only a lot of memories by people like his close homeboy, Head Honcho. But it is obvious to me that he put his mark on Crip history, so deserves to be in the top 10. Wayne Honcho Day had a father, Arthur Day, who ran a trucking business, while his mother was involved in community affairs and later became president of the Watts Gang Task Force Council that met with local politicians. In fact, in the early 1970s and 80s, several members of the large Day family became prominent Brick Street Crip gang members. Head Honcho told Street TV host Alex Alonso in 2018 that he got into the gang at the age of 15. He initially joined the Crips in Compton before taking over Watts. It was under the direction of the Consolidated Crip organization that Head Honcho called hundreds of separate warring Crip sets together at Compton High School Stadium in 1987. The Crips videotaped this meeting where Honcho appealed for Crip unity and gave examples of how to divert police in order to attack their rivals in another area. Even after efforts for unity, the Consolidated Crip organization failed, and even Head Honcho was unable to prevent his own brother, Kenny Day from becoming a victim of rival gang gunfire. Kenny Day's funeral was a huge affair, and the Grape Street color purple could be seen everywhere. The memorial and funeral procession rivaled that of the head of state. As a powerful Compton Crip OG and the de facto leader of the Grape Street Crips, Honcho was also often called the Godfather of Watts. By the mid-1980s, the Crip Street Gang organization had spread to many parts of the United States due to a large drug distribution organization led by Honcho Day with direct connections to the Mexican drug cartels. Grape Street members distributed crack cocaine in cities as far away as Minneapolis, Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Jackson, Mississippi, and Memphis, Tennessee. Before he was arrested in 1996, Honcho led his gang to become one of the top drug rings in the country. When he was 40 years old, Honcho was arrested at a motel on the Las Vegas Strip. He was charged with the distribution and conspiracy to distribute cocaine in cocaine base, also known as crack, and possession and conspiracy to possess goods stolen from interstate commerce. In 1996, the FBI arrested Honcho in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he was convicted in federal court in 1997 and sentenced to almost 20 years in prison. It marked the end of Honcho's reign, but did not end his respect in the city of Compton and the city of Watts. In June 2007, Wayne Honcho Day was released from prison, and he has since appeared in many videos. Melvin Farmer is the recognized founder of the 8 Crips, which is a very large Crip gang set. Before he was a Westside Crip, Farmer ran with a gang called the Cafe Boys, and later banged Underground Crip with Monkey Man, several other Crip OGs. He then created the 8 Gangster Crips with Rayford Sidewinder Miles. Farmer has also appeared on the internet on shows like Vlad TV, where he discussed meeting Tookie Williams' sister in the 8th grade and being around Tookie after that point in time. Farmer explained he joined the Crips in 1971. He also appeared near the end of a well-known 8 gangster Monster Cody episode on Black Entertainment Television, and has published a book entitled The New Slave Ship about the 3 Strikes Law in California. He was one of the first guys to be charged with the 3 Strikes Law when charged for possession of less than 1 gram of cocaine and sentenced to 34 years to life. The harsh sentence resulted after he was arrested for going to Mexico without authorization from his corrections parole officer. He says the sentence changed his life. It finally hit me that 20 years behind prison bars carried a high price for me, for my family, even for society. I could accomplish more on the outside, trying to affect a lot of change in the thinking of others who are destined to follow in my footsteps. He also states that his book was meant to show the cruelty of the 3 Strikes Law. But more importantly, he said he wanted to dispel the belief of many young Black men that being in prison is an honor. In 2018, his son, Melvin Farmer Jr., who was 40 years old, was convicted on a string of 13 felonies, including robberies and sexual assaults, even targeting elderly women in Long Beach. The jury deadlocked on 1 count of forcible rape of a 24-year-old woman. Melvin Farmer Jr., who lived in Linwood, California at the time, was found guilty of sexual battery, assault, robbery, burglary, dissuading a witness, elder abuse, making criminal threats, and 1 count of forcible rape, and was sentenced to 423 years. I've said it before on my channel, I don't believe in guilt by association, as I feel you can't really choose your relatives. But I'm sure it pains Mr. Farmer Sr. that he couldn't even save his own son from being a convict. That concludes part 1, the top 10 most influential Crip gang members ever. Part 2 will follow soon on this channel. Thanks for watching.